Welcome back to another episode of the Chasing Tails podcast, where we talk all things outdoors with one simple goal: to motivate you to get into the great outdoors. My name is Walt. I'm joined by Chase. Dude, as we sit today, we are no longer counting down the months to deer season. It is only a few short weeks away from the bow openers in our areas. Man, are you losing sleep yet?
No, I'm not losing sleep. I know for a fact that I'm at 25 days, 9 hours, 34 minutes, 54 seconds away from deer season. I'll start losing sleep once it gets closer to season and I start catching deer on camera that I know I want to go after. That's when I'll probably start losing some sleep. But as for right now, I've just been kind of hitting the ground, scouting a new area that I'm going to be hunting this season. Been spending a lot of time there, just getting a lay of the land. Been scouting with a buddy of mine. We're going to tackle it together this year, which ought to be fun. He's hunted it in the past, so I figured I'd go out there and it'd just be good to hunt with him. He's one of my real good work buddies, and we used to hunt together in the past, so kind of looking forward to that. And I was out shooting my bow today. I'd got some new arrows that I was trying out, and of course I've already blown up like 2 knocks from hitting them. So I was kind of upset about that. I'm like, geez, man, what the heck? But I guess that's a good thing for my shooting. But just trying to get everything kind of dialed in and ready to hit the ground running in 25 days. What have you been doing? Yours is even sooner, so you should really be excited.
I am. I'm sitting at 12 days away from when I'm going to get into the whitetail woods, and I'm pretty friggin' amped about that. So been doing a lot of scouting, gotten on some really good deer sign here lately, starting to feel like, maybe this could be a really good year. So the good news is this is the first time that I feel like I have a genuine plan and backup plan and backup plan to the backup plan, and they're not all just like shots in the dark. I feel like, through the podcast and talking to people and you helping me and other people, volunteering information, I really started to hone in on what could be a really good pattern for this area. And part of what made that pattern possible is the use of trail cameras, which is tonight's main topic. We're talking trail cameras with the one and only Byron Horton. And if you don't know who that is, he's a dear friend of the podcast. He was one of the first guests that we had on the show way back in 2017 when we started, which is just ridiculous to even that's a different topic for another day. But he made a repeat appearance, but this time we kind of broke down the videos that he's done on trail cameras, their application, why he started to use them, and I think people are going to come away with this, I hope they do, with a different take on the use of trail cameras, and I hope that they go watch his videos because, we summarize here in about an hour and 20 minutes what he said through a multitude of videos, and I think the dialogue was rich, and I think a lot of people might come away feeling a little differently about their role in the whitetail woods.
Right. I mean, I thought it's going to be a great episode for everybody. I feel like he hammered home some key points on if you're going to be going out to just put a trail camera out, maybe that you need to add more to your arsenal just to get more bang for your buck, and maybe think about the cost of trail cameras, and also to think about how they can help you maybe in the summer, how they can help you throughout the season. We talked about historical data. I mean, we hit a ton of good points on trail cams that I don't think we've kind of discussed before on the podcast. So I hope it kind of makes people think about that more, and hopefully it'll get them out there in the woods more, maybe just use it as a tool, because that's what a trail camera is, but don't kind of let it get in the way of your scouting that you would normally do. And Byron kind of mentioned that too.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm not going to belabor a point because we spend a lot of time talking about all of these, but I do want to know one important thing, Chase. And we got a listener who sent us a message. His name's John, and he said, really like the podcast. The Quota Hunt one, which is the one from last week, was fantastic. But what happened to the intro music? My daughters listen to me on my drives, and they want to know what happened to the, get this, Hee Haw podcast. So John, we're gonna cut to the podcast here, but turn the mic up. This is for your daughters who ride with you and listen to the podcast. We're gonna throw the old intro in here for you, and yeah, I hope they enjoy.
Yep. Let's get on to the episode.
All right, we have got the man, the myth, the legend, Byron Horton. Dude, what's going on?
Hey, Walt, how's it going, man? I'm excited. Season is essentially 2 weekends away from me at this point, and I'm shooting the bow more. I'm doing a little more scouting. Trail cams are starting to roll in. It is a good time of year.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you've been on the podcast numerous times. However, this is the first time that you join us with a special title, and that's podcast host, dude. You've got your own podcast now. What's good?
Maybe that is a selfish way to talk to better hunters than myself and ask personal questions. Podcast is loose, I would say. I don't think that's my main delivery. I've by no means claim to be an expert in that realm, but yeah, just a small podcast, and it is kind of nice to talk to some guys and ask personal questions that will better my deer hunting, and I think that's a huge plus there. And then, dude, sometimes I'd have conversations with Dave that I'm like, we should have recorded that. That was a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, man. I'm thrilled that you started doing a podcast. I think you and I have kind of talked about it off and on for a while, and kind of COVID, I think, kind of pushed you into that. It gave you maybe a little more free time, cut down on that commute. And I'm glad you did, because for me, I hear a very goal-driven host with you. I know that probably irks Dave a little bit, because he likes to, BS and be a little more loose with it. But whenever I listen to your podcast, I'm always thinking, okay, he is going to hit 4 or 5 really solid points in this narrow window of time, and it's all going to be, zingers. So you're killing it, dude.
Yeah, thanks. And like I said, that is not my main delivery. Like, I know you guys are in the pro world of what I call like the podcasters, and definitely in that early adaption stage as far as you guys got in there. And it's more of a, it's not our key deliverable, but it's a nice add to what we got going on. Just like you're doing with YouTube, the YouTube side of Chasing Tails is kind of that growing segment and a good add to the brand.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, along the line of YouTube, you have done a series of videos recently, and you and I have had some really interesting discussions recently, and the gist of this podcast, the backbone of this podcast, is going to be trail cameras. That's going to be the discussion piece here, and I think if you guys, you're hearing trail cameras, there's probably a dozen or more trail camera episodes that have dropped this month because we're this close to deer season, but I have a feeling we're going to be coming at this from a unique angle that you probably haven't heard before, so stick with us. I think this is really, really going to be worth your while. Byron, you come from a standpoint, both you and I, this is the first year that you and I have really started to press into trail camera usage. Kind of set the stage for us. Why weren't you reliant or, let's say, overly enthusiastic about using trail cameras in your approach?
Yeah, I think it stems from kind of a few things. And obviously when the trail cameras, I can remember having, my first Remington Ghost. It was like $120, ran on C batteries, worked for about 7 to 14 days. And then it was like they kind of morphed into the double A's, became more effective. And so at that point, I'm 20 to 22, and I might have had 2 or 3 working cameras that kind of worked and sometimes didn't work and then sometimes would work. And so like that was kind of the mark I probably stayed at for the better part of the like if we look at the last 10 years as my bow hunting, I'd always had like 3 or 4 cameras, and I chose to invest my money in say better mobile gear, boots, a better pack, I developed probably my ability to read sign and scout a lot in the off season was where I was devoting my time, my resources, my money. And really, it wasn't until about 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to invest in a little better camera quality, kind of around the. I started running a bunch of Exodus Treks around that, $100-ish mark when you find them on sale, maybe 125 on some of their special sales. So that, that camera, and then I had a few stealth cams, but I jumped up into running about 8 trail cameras 2 years ago. And then obviously Zoe kind of jumped on board, who's another guy that does some hunting on the whitetail experience, and he bought like 3 or 4. So, and Zoe and I tend to hunt some more similar pieces than even say Dave. Dave and Andy kind of tackle some pieces a little more together. They've been on those pieces a long time. It's I just don't want to hunt that because I do kind of feel like I'm stepping on their honey holes or their toes. And so, I kind of have some pieces that I hunt solo and with Zoe. And so 2 years ago, I was running about 10 to 12 cams with Zoe. And then this year I've invested more in that, anywhere from 55 to $85 cams. I'm now running about 20 cams, and Zoe's got about 8. And so that's kind of the number I've ended up at. And I looked at my hole in the bucket as a whitetail hunter, and I thought trail cams was an area I could maybe look to improve on, because I think I've developed some other skills instead of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say that you've been hindered, or do you feel like you've been hindered by a lack of being one of those guys that's got like 20 to 30 cams out there and you just know everything that crawls? I mean, you've had some good success. Do you feel like you've missed out, or is this just, diving into trail cameras is going to just add to what you're already doing?
So I think a little bit of both. Like, I definitely think I missed out, because there for a couple years, like, I remember, dude, there was a fall I didn't run cameras anywhere. Like, and I realized too, it's a nice confidence boost getting a good picture of a public land buck. That kind of it's a visual sighting,
right?
So a confidence boost, and I felt like I had developed some skills as far as the ability to read sign, hunt hard, do a lot of scouting in the off season to kind of have blueprints of these public pieces. And so, proof of life sometimes is half the battle. And then, to be honest too, running around with some of the whitetail addiction guys, like kind of just talking to them, a lot of those guys are hunting a super high caliber buck, but one of the biggest battles they all face is finding him. And trail cameras were a tool that they were utilizing to literally locate a buck of caliber. And then it's like, okay, maybe figure out access. Maybe I have the access. Maybe, and so I was just subtracting inches to what a shooter was for me, and realized I could probably use some use this as a tool in my arsenal to better and improve upon.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to me what you mentioned with the confidence boost that it brings. One of the things that I was talking to my buddy about why I've been trying to dive into trail cameras is because, if you're a weekend warrior like you and I, it's one of those things where when you get a deer on camera, you there's something in there worth pursuing. And I did a long soak on a trail camera last year. It sat there for 3 months. It got gobs and gobs of photos, and I learned a lot. And when I really started thinking, what did I learn? Like, what kind of learning experience did that camera provide me? I started thinking about how many times I would have had to sit that spot, right, to obtain the same knowledge during daylight hours only. How many times would I have had to sit there? Well, it sat there for 3 months. 3 months is 90 days. How many seasons would go by for the weekend warrior getting, 12 days a month, that's Saturday and Sunday, 4 times, or that's 8 rather, 8 hunts a month times 3. When you start looking at it, suddenly it's like, you got 3 years worth of sitting in one spot every opportunity that you had. And go ahead.
And undisturbed data,
undisturbed,
if you're
right?
Hunting or scouting, you're definitely going to lay down some sort of disturbance. I mean, I think deer, especially in Florida, I would believe, they might be a little more wired than even deer I'm hunting. So they may pick up on your presence if you would hunt that area all the time. Exactly.
And it's about as unadulterated. There's a phrase in physics where it's like the observation or the observer effect, and that is basically to witness something is to alter its state even to the tiniest degree. And if you carry that over to hunting, then to simply be in the woods is to disturb the woods. You've walked, you've sweated, you've farted, you've left an unnatural presence there. But I think if you slip in there and you hang a camera and you slip back out and you don't come back for 3 months, I mean, I think that's like the most minimal effect that you could have on an area and still say, okay, I don't feel like I changed their patterns by being there. So kind of keep that in your mind as you're listening to this episode. Is a $25, $30, $40, $100 camera, is it worth it? Well, if it sits in one place for 3 months and it's a productive 3 months, which is where we're going to go with this discussion in a little bit, I really feel like you can really start to increase your understanding of the area. I think it can be a real big asset, but kind of feeding into the cost component of this. You did an excellent video, I thought. It really kind of opened my eyes into the true cost of trail cameras, which is something that I don't think a lot of people consider. And I'd kind of like you to maybe outline that video for everybody and kind of what were you seeking to show people?
So I guess I am like a financial accounting type like guy. But I obviously chose to look at trail cameras, and I was trying to look at a little bit more budget-friendly cameras this year. And the reason being is I feel like on public land, dude, there were some pulls last year where we were like 50%, where what I mean by 50% is literally if I put out 6 cameras, only 3 of those essentially worked. And a lot of that is because of the elevated sets. We put these cameras up in the air and angle them down. And it just seems like it's easier to mess up that angle. I literally just pulled a trail camera on Sunday that had been soaking since June. The day after I left it, a branch blew in front of it and just filled the SD card in 4 days on because I had it set to a 3-shot burst and literally no information, 0 pics of deer, just a leaf and a stick. And so, I've almost turned into a volume shooter at this point with the trail cams. Like if I go to a piece or if I even step out of my vehicle, I'm like, dude, if I can get 2 out instead of 1, like I know, okay, I might fail 50% of the time. And so with that video, like I was looking at what's the true cost if I drive to a piece and literally put out one $55 camera and just looked at, okay, there's batteries involved. What's the, couple dollars there in batteries, what SD card, you kind of need 2 of those. Okay. What's that cost total out to be? The gas to get there. Okay. If you're putting out 1 camera, I think I used like 50 some miles. So, 100 miles in gas to put out 1 camera and what's that look like? So yeah, I kind of wanted to look at it, and it made it at the end. Bottom line, I think if they want to go to that video, I can give some ballpark figures. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's like a $55 camera just to go out, swap an SD card before fall, and essentially have that thing in hunting mode come, let's call it October, with 1 kind of card swap there in August. I think it was like it cost you $90 some to run that 1 camera for fall. That's obviously raw purchase. And then later in the video, like I break it down to, let's say you don't need to buy a new camera body. You've got working cameras, you've got reliable ones. And so every year you're just, tossing in some new batteries. You don't have the SD card purchase. How much more affordable are they running? And honestly, it made sense to me based on that video. 1, if you step out of the vehicle, hang a bunch of cameras. 2, reliability becomes a bigger factor, because if the $55 camera only lasts you 1 year, but like say a $75 to $100 camera lasts you multiple years, it's a no-brainer. That's the kind of the route to go. And what, to be honest, maybe there's a little bit of both in the arsenal, because I could say also you need some of those $30, $40 cameras and scatter the woods, but also have some workhorses in case you maybe catch a giant.
Right. Well, did you ever consider the cameras if they were stolen or not?
So I've lost, like in that video, like I don't go through losing a trail camera cost. That's not there, but last year I think I lost 2 or 3 as a team between
Really?
me and Dave. And let's call it, we were running 15 between me, Dave, and Zoe. Maybe 16, 17. But yeah, we lost 3, and we lost 2 in areas we know big bucks were in. So there might be a correlation there.
Right.
Like no doubt, no, there were big bucks there. Like trail cam pics, sheds, visuals.
I think you kind of touch on that a little bit in that video, though, because you touched on if the camera fails on the cheaper scale. So you kind of see that in there as well. If you have 1 or 2 cameras fail because you went cheap, then you incur these costs again next year. What was remarkable was that initial investment. Like, it was very expensive to run those cameras the first year. And it really got me thinking, like, dude, these Tascos that we have, I mean, Chase, how many Tascos have you had fail you?
Well, I've only had one fail me, and I bought a bunch this year, but that one failed me. So
Okay, well, he's got 100% fail rate.
He may not have enough to really collect data yet.
Right. For me,
I'll know more this year.
Yeah. For me, I've still got. I gave one away, but I had 2 that ran me a full season without any issue. I've got 5 of the $25 Simmons cameras for this year, and if I can get 2 or 3 years out of them, I really come out ahead. But if I don't, that spreadsheet you put together kind of had me sitting there thinking, I could really be throwing away a lot of money moving forward.
Yeah. Because when you lose a camera, and we run mounts, so there's an extra anywhere $5 to $15 to mount a trail camera high. But we've had so many sticks fail. It's like that's almost worse.
Right.
Like you literally lost your gas if you drive to the place and the trail camera stick fell over and it didn't take pictures of the right area. It's like, man, it's but
that's true. Well, the one thing I can say about the Tascos though now is they have you can buy like a $3 insurance policy, I would call it, and that camera is supposed to for 3 years.
Yeah, no brainer.
Wow. So that in itself, you're like, okay, this camera's probably gonna crap out within 3 years, but I'm gonna get another one for free in 3 years if I pay the extra $3.
Nice.
Yeah, $1 a year for insurance on that one. That is.
Yeah.
And I know you did a video on the Sims.
Yep.
And I had a Sims rangefinder that honestly I liked for a couple years. So I will be interested to see how those run after after one full year, say 6 months of timber time. You should kind of have a gauge.
Yeah. Well, and I've got it. You mentioned the rangefinder. My Simmons rangefinder, dude, is going on like year, I don't know, like 5 or 6. I don't have any topography or any need to have angle, third axis, moon alignment, in my camera. I mean, on my rangefinder, but I can't bring myself to get rid of it. And I'm hoping I'll feel the same way about these cameras. I'm going to put one on a feeder that's got several deer and hogs on it, and my goal is to simply wear the thing out. The feeder's going to have corn in it year round because we're trying to catch some hogs there. So, I'm thinking it could have anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000 pictures a month on this thing with all the activity that's on there. So we're going to have a true real world test, and some people have asked that I run it in conjunction with my stealth cameras as well and kind of do like a side-by-side there, like photo quality versus, number of photos and response time, all of that. So there could be some fun things in the works. But let me ask you this: why do you run the little mounting brackets? Is that to make it harder to find the trail camera, or?
Honestly, it's just like so. Obviously, when you mount those cameras high, sometimes to get, and we spend some time getting those angles correct, as far as, especially if you got 2 guys, one guy's up there on the mountain, the other guy says move it half an inch left, centimeter down, because when you elevate those trail cams, the angle of detection is not as good as if you were, say, hip or belt level and you're shooting down a trail and you got a little more room for air. The body of the deer's moving right at the sensory level of the camera. That the mounting systems, I've got, it's Hawk makes one, HME makes one. They both have holes in the game. I actually think I've got a video out there that the HME is uglier, but it seems to work a little better. But at the same time, you can take the Hawk and screw it into a tree or whatever, and then place the camera. It's got like an adapter piece, which makes it nice. But like the stick and pick, even though it's like double the price or triple the price, if you find those on sale, like definitely buy them then, because they're the Cadillac as far as mounting system.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's just we find odd angles. When you elevate sets in farm country, you're like poking, like this camera's got to poke through like branches and limbs sometimes. Like you may mount it to a horizontal branch. It's a trickier game, and there's more people hunting public land, and obviously with COVID, there's a lot more people in the woods right now.
So wrapping up that video that you did on the true cost of cameras, what was your ultimate takeaway? After you looked at all that, did it change anything that you thought about trail cameras?
Me personally, just the longevity is key as far as, if they work for multiple years, that's huge. And then if you go and drive to a piece, it's like, dude, especially on the main public that I hunt, it's like, get as many out as you can, because your gas is going to get spread out. And just with our failure rate, like the price, it's that to me was kind of the big takeaway. And it's almost eyeball shocking how expensive it is to run them effectively for 1 year if you got to buy them too. I mean, that number gets up there.
Right. But, I mean, killing a buck is priceless. So,
yeah.
You're not wrong.
Well, oh man, I have to think that if you're running cameras the smart, efficient way, it's gonna pay dividends for you in the long run. I mean, I've got several spots where I think about all year long. I had bucks in daylight rather, good, like would turn head Florida bucks. And I can't wait to get in those spots. And when I get there, I'm not coming down. Like I'm going in there on the right wind in the right area. And I think staying longer is going to help. Public land is an animal. So I'm curious, what are you trying? What kind of, do you prioritize picture quality over just getting the photo? What are you trying to do with your trail cameras?
There is starting to be, there is like a performance level that I need as a base. Dave pointed it out because I sent him a couple pics of some farm country bucks, and like there was a stealth cam that flipped over and somehow caught a shooter, but like,
yeah, that was cool.
It was one of those things that like it was pretty blurry, and if that deer is like a touch further, like you may say, oh no, and this is just for me, like that buck could have been 100 inches or 130. That camera doesn't necessarily distinct the difference at any sort of range. I've noticed with a Browning of mine that I kind of purchased off of Amazon at the $70 mark, takes phenomenal daytime images, like some of the best. They could definitely hang with kind of the Exodus trek, but you turn it to night mode, and you kind of need that camera just on a trail relatively close. It seems to struggle at night, and definitely seems to struggle to reach at a distance with its night photos, and they're touch blurrier. It definitely is a lack there. But at the same time, I really like a couple other features on that camera. Super easy to set up, great menu screen. Like I definitely think some of these other factors go into a performance, not just quality of photo. I'll have you a pretty good test of about 5-6 camera models here in the next 4 or 5 months.
Interesting.
Right. And I know the Brownings, because I've got some Brownings. The battery life is awesome on those cameras. So, I mean, they seem to last the entire season, even if you're getting a ton of pictures.
Chase, I've heard nothing but great things about Brownings, and I bought I think it's the Black Ops model. It is their super cheap camera on Amazon. I don't think people should hear this podcast because I feel like if you buy like the $90-$100 Brownings, I feel like, Chase, can you speak to that? That those are pretty nice cameras.
Yeah, they're nice. I had a couple there. Oh man, I bought them. It's probably been 7-8 years ago, but they were the high. They were like in the 150 range then, but I don't know what they are now. They probably have gone down a little bit since it was 7 or 8 years ago. But yeah, they were great cameras. Like you mentioned, they took like super quality daytime pics. Maybe some of the nighttime stuff, like you said, there may have been more to be desired there. Just wasn't as good at the nighttime. But yeah, I've had nothing but good luck with the Browning cams.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think the one trail camera that I don't have any experience with. Like genuine scene photos from and everything. The one I was most impressed impressed from, if you don't go like knockoff, because Chase, you and I have talked about our favorite camera in that regard. But I don't know if y'all remember, but those Bushnell trophy cams that came out about 6-7 years ago. They're kind of outdated now, but dude, they took ridiculously good daytime photos, pretty dadgum good nighttime photos. But I mean, like, you could see hairs on the deer in the sunlight. It was unreal, blew my mind. And you could get them back then for like $150. I think I saw them on Amazon for like $60 now, and I've oftentimes thought about buying more of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it like a smaller gray body?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think I had one of those, and I actually do remember I ran it in the big ones one year, and I can remember some good nighttime performance out of that camera on a buck, and you could kind of visibly see what his rack was really looking like at a pretty good distance. And remember, I was pretty happy with that cam. I might have got stolen. I don't know where it is. I can't think of where it is, and I'm like, I know I pulled it from that piece. I know what year I pulled it from that piece.
It was in that area with the big bucks again.
Yeah, well, that was a bigwood section that you get a picture of a giant, but you'd also go there a lot and not see any deer.
Yeah. Well, Chase, I've done a lot of talking. What are your thoughts thus far? Have I missed anything that we wanted to hit on?
No, I think you've hit on quite a bit of that stuff, and like you were mentioning with the like true cost of cameras and things like that. I watched that video, but like Byron mentioned, it wasn't really the only really cost I ever kind of considered before was like just the initial cost of the camera.
Right.
Like I never figured in, okay, I'm driving out to go check these cameras and the cost of the batteries and the SD cards and all that going in there.
SD cards, you start to look at $10. They're roughly $4 to $5 a piece, kind of depending what you buy. You see all the time there's SD cards that come with the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard nothing but bad things about the muddy one. I have snapped both my Spy Point ones because I just feel like that they're part of my issue with that camera in particular.
Right. Yeah. I think you need a good quality one.
Yeah, you definitely do. And the bundle prices aren't bad on those. And I run a lot of 16s just because I think I can get a good amount of photos on them, and hopefully just switch them to video for kind of that October 15th time frame on the scrapes.
Yeah. I don't know about you. Actually, I do know. You run an iPhone. One of the best things you can do is buy the iPhone brand dongle SD card reader. Every SD card reader I've ever bought has gone to crap in the span of like a month or two. But this one I've got from Apple, it's only $25. It never quits working.
Yeah, I actually went and bought one after you did kind of showed me that. Or
yeah.
Sent me that after texting. I will agree from the one day that I really utilized it. It seemed like a pretty slick tool to throw in your bag if you're going to walk by a camera and be sitting in a tree stand in that area, kind of thing like that. That has a lot of use to me, and I need to actually play with that as far as being able to view those photos at a little bit bigger size, because that was my only thing. I only played with it one day, and so like you like click which ones you want to import, but they're kind of like smaller on the viewing screen. I couldn't see all the time, and I had a bunch of false triggers, and I really didn't want to go through them
there. Yeah. What you need is an iPad. See, the purchases just keep rolling. You need an iPad. And then... He doesn't sound sold, does he, Chase?
If it's a big enough buck, he might be.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, because shooting a big buck's priceless.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't tell your wives or girlfriends.
Oh, man. Well, you did a video on breaking apart a block of timber. You and Zoe went in here and you kind of blitzed the area, from what I can recall, with cameras. Kind of, how did you select this piece? How many cameras did you put out? And what were the results that you got from that?
Yeah, like I and part of that video is kind of the whitetail experience to the core, which I was tricked by the industry back in the day, and you see a lot of TV shows from the mid 2000s, and you just see trail cam pics and a guy shoots a buck, and you kind of don't know some of the statistics or what really did. Or let's be real, that guy probably had a 20-year-old dude working at the outfitter as an intern that scouted those trail cam pics for him, but. So that block of timber, or I would call that a farm country public piece, and the video here, I'm gonna say that might have been a few pieces. I want to be a little elusive there, but basically from the results there, we blitzed this public, hanging trail cameras. Zoe and I actually hung trail cams separately back in May, June time frame, and people will be like, oh, I don't get my cams out till July 4th, but I'll be honest, dude, like my summer gets away from me. I had a baby coming in June, so I was looking to get my stuff done early this year, and people just get busy these days, so I feel like if you do have a weekend, get that stuff done. I'm a big proponent of that. So yeah, we scattered, I think 10 or 11 cams back in May, June, and then we recently here early August, 2 weeks ago, I want to say, went and pulled those cameras. We got to 9 of them. We didn't get to all of them. And as a result of that, we learned a lot of things. We ran some trail cameras on beans, and to be honest, you get a lot of open air movement, and those beans almost act like waves in the ocean, and they do create a lot of false triggers, especially in the sunlight. I feel like between 10 and 2. So on a couple of those cameras, like it just became apparent that we should look for, sunrise, sunset photos and dark, overnight photos. We ran a couple of those cameras on field edge scrapes that we've scouted in the off season that were like, we noticed last couple of years there's been a scrape. Sure enough, that scrape produced a shooter. Like the buck literally came through and did a loop on that scrape, and had really good luck running trail cams on creek crossings. That seems to be I almost will go to that, I think, a little more because I get a lot less false triggers on that. Trying to do some mock scrape stuff there. I've tried a little more of that in the big woods than necessarily farm country, just because farm country you can play that bean game a lot easier. And bottom line, we have located, I think, is it $4? Might be $5, $4 or $5 out of those 9 trail cams, and only one real true failure. And even that failure was the one that flipped over and caught the caught the buck. Now we did have some cards fill up by July 16th on beans, just due to a lot of false triggers. So learning lesson there. We're going to set those cameras for maybe either 1 or 2 shot bursts, but I think a little longer delay between those triggers, just to maybe prolong the SD card. And you can run some of those Brownings in SD card management mode, and we didn't do that, and I think I'll do that going forward. So I keep more of my more recent photos. So that's kind of some just real quick summarizing thoughts.
Yeah. So how many, having done that, would you blitz an area again? I mean, was this something that you were just doing for the YouTube, or do you think that you could replicate that in the future trying to isolate deer?
No, that's my tactic is literally just because of the failure rates. It was something that on one of my truck parks on this piece of public, I put out 4 cameras, never having to move my vehicle. You know, and I've got a couple, you know, it's something that we've noticed too. Sometimes a trail camera 50 to 100 yards different picks up different deer. Because that trail cam is only capturing such a small section of a field, or, you know, one certain trail, and sometimes, you know, you kind of do need to scatter them out. We had the trail cameras, and I knew with limited time, it's like, well, why wouldn't we put maximum out? Like, I literally, Walt, I have a trail camera 20 yards apart right now on a farm country piece, because I've got a scrape on one side of the what I'll call like a hedgerow, which is like a 20-yard strip of timber separating fields. And then I've literally threw one on the other side of this hedgerow that's facing the beans. And I'll be real interested to see if those capture different deer, being 20 yards apart. One's a food source, one's a scrape that's there every year.
I have a question, Byron, for you with running the summer trail cam. How have you ever done any research, or it seems like you're really getting into it now, but how many of those deer do you think are actually going to stick around when the season gets here? Do you feel like they're all going to still be in that same area? Do you feel like some are going to disperse, new ones are going to move in? Have you factored any of that in?
Yeah, I definitely kind of, at least in farm country in particular, like I would say I've got starting points, but I'm not like emotionally attached to some of those bucks. And I guess I should also point out, it's not like I've got these bucks hitting these cameras every day. Literally, the most occurrences we ever had on a shooter was 2 times. You know, and I don't, you know, one of those is a creek crossing deer, and one of those is the scrapes seem to be a little better at getting multiple occurrences. But yeah, like, there's always a shift that seems to occur. But I can also speak to like some big wood stuff where I have literally found sheds, summer trail cam pics, and fall trail camera pics all in the same area. And I don't know if that's a big woods trait. If I think about it, those are both the same piece of public. I don't know if maybe that's a regional thing in that area. Maybe the ecosystem allows them to stay in that block, or stay closer to home there. But yes, Chase, I totally agree. Like, I can only take these with a grain of salt. And honestly, like, some of these summer trail cam pics, you know, some of the summer trail cam prep that we're doing now, it's that September data that's going to be so much more important than anything else on those cameras. Like, I haven't pulled my 2 big woods pieces that I hunt. So that's like 12. There's probably 14 cams out there that I need to pull in that area that hopefully I'll get to in September, and maybe have a little more hard-horned information, because that's what you want, I got to believe.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of agree to that. I can point to an instance where there's a piece of private that I hunt, and during the summer you'll have maybe a ton of bucks in this one area, and then it's like almost seems like as soon as that velvet comes off, then more than half of those kind of disperse out, and you may catch a picture of them here and there kind of throughout the season, maybe coming back to check does. And then you'll have another group of bucks that you never had on camera whatsoever during the summer kind of show up there, and then they stay there the entire season. So I always kind of just like, okay, I'm the same thing that you're talking about. I'm going to summer picks. I'm going to go, okay, I've got some deer here, obviously, but I'm going to wait more till I feel like that shift occurs to really kind of go, okay, I'm pretty sure this buck is kind of using this as his core area, and be able to focus more on that than the summer picks.
Yeah. And like, part of that August maintenance we just did, we got like maybe a little bead on a few of these bucks that I just called shooters. And I say don't get emotionally attached, but best believe I about jump to the moon every time I see a good one. But you know, we did shift those cameras a little bit, pulled them off the beans. We refreshed a lot of batteries and SD cards to hopefully, the thought is then, okay, when season rolls in and I'm hunting this piece, those cameras are fully operational. I've troubleshooted some of my airs. They've got SD card room. They got battery life. So yeah, Chase, I feel like it does. I mean, that August, September, because I plan to do my bigwood stuff in September. So yeah, this late, let's call it late summer work, trail cam work, is also setting you up, I feel like, for fall success when that information is super deadly. And that's what, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Because all I need is a picture in October. I only need one picture somewhere in September, October to start that chase, I feel like.
Right. Do you feel like on these areas that you would be able to recognize bucks from year to year? Like, do you feel
Yeah,
like you could go, okay, I saw that buck here last year and he stayed kind of throughout the whole season? Like, do you feel like you have enough information to be able to go ahead and do something like that?
yeah. And I think part of that is there's not a bunch of shooters, but like, oh, if I look at bucks that I've trail cammed and then chased in season and got like I give them all nicknames. I know what they look like. Like I got a buck sheds downstairs. The buck's called Apple Picker because I took my wife apple picking the day he daylighted.
Okay.
But he's a 9-point with a forward leaning G3. Like, like I think when I and then I saw that deer this year on trail cam, and yeah, he was 20 inches bigger, but it was no doubt that same deer. Same thing with like just little characteristics. A tight buck with no brow on right side. Like, yeah, I feel like the cages stay the same, and I'm pretty sure I can recognize them. And honestly, Chase, like, I don't care as long as he's a shooter the year I'm trying to hunt him. That's what I'm after. I don't necessarily chase these bucks year over year. I don't have that kind of experience.
Right. Well, what are you calling a shooter for everybody listening?
No, I would say anything kind of around that 130 mark, at least on the public here in Ohio. That's going to tickle my fancy. Now, if he's 110 and he's 20 inches wide, he's going to die too. I got a thing for wide bucks, but yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's kind of what I figured, that you probably would have some history with some and just recognize, okay, yeah, that was a deer I had last year. More to kind of relate the trail cam thing to, because how I use trail cams a lot is the historical data, and we haven't really dived into any of that yet.
Yeah, nice. That's a goal. Chase, I guess how many cams are you running? I know you have a couple properties. You had a heck of a year last year. How many cams are you running?
Well, this year I've bought more just because I'm going to be tackling this large piece of public, kind of where I'm at. But as far as my private areas, I may run on one of the properties. I run about 7 or 8 trail cams on that property, and I feel like I have a real good grasp or whatever touch on the bucks that are there the whole season. And on this particular property, because usually in Florida it's almost kind of hard to maybe recognize bucks because you got a lot of your just like standard 8 points that may be 80 to 90 inches. But on this property, for some reason, I've been able to like identify the bucks like year after year on this property and go, okay, this was this buck last year. This is him this year. I don't feel like it's overrun with a ton of deer, and maybe that's the reason why I can, where there's just not a ton of deer, because the other property, it's like a doe factory. It's just loaded with does, and we get so many bucks that kind of come through throughout the season because Florida's rut's weird to begin with. So you may have bucks passing through at all times where you may get 1 or 2 pictures of that buck and never see him again type deal. And then you may have a few that kind of stick around the property the entire season. But I usually, and on that, the one where I'm running 8 cameras, it's like a 400 acre piece probably. And I think it just that many. I probably should be running more. I know some people are like, oh, I run a camera like 80 acres or something is what I've heard before is people running. But I feel like in Florida, kind of where there's really no areas, the deer kind of funnel and things like that, you kind of need to run more to get a grasp on what's there. So I probably could be running more cameras, but I feel like the cameras to me there have really helped me with the historical data on the deer.
Yeah, and that's something I'll be able to speak on a lot more. I feel like, my buddy Jake Hofer from Exodus, he was texting me. He goes, dude, because he kind of like, I don't know, I pick his brain sometimes, and he was just texting me. He goes, he said something like, I'll be interested to see how you do with some historical data kind of with what you do from a mobile hunting perspective, like read sign type of thing. Like, and honestly, like that's just, if we rewind this conversation 2 years ago, I was like, I kind of have a hole in the bucket with the trail cam thing, and I'm going to try and add that to the arsenal.
I think you'll really find about how much that actually helps you, especially when you get into chasing a particular deer. Because I know that I have started doing that maybe a few years ago, and you can go back. There's this particular buck that I was after last year, and just had an unfortunate situation whenever I took the shot at him. But I had pictures of him the year before, and in this area he showed up in daylight, which I knew he showed up in daylight on 11/3. But I didn't really go back. I had some other pictures of him, but I didn't go back and look at a different one. But in this year, he showed up on the exact same day in the daylight in that exact same area. And I went back and looked at another picture that I had found that I'd kind of pushed to the side, and there was another day that was the same. So it was within like a 4-day window of where he showed up in daylight twice in the same area in daylight. So I'm more like, okay, he's done that 2 years in a row. So to me, it's like, okay, now I know, because I kind of maybe pressured that area a little bit too much before that, just kind of working around the area, not maybe just diving into that one spot enough. But now I'm like, okay, I've got this historical data. Now I know I probably should leave that area alone for the most part until that time. You know what I mean? Probably shouldn't dive in until then, and maybe try to find him somewhere else in the meantime to try to get him before that.
Yeah, you almost have you got a meeting invite on your calendar for that time of year.
Well, the problem is for one of those days, I got him for one of those days, but the other one I'm going to be in Iowa, so I'm almost like, no. Yeah, exactly.
Iowa trip this year.
I'm crying of tears, crocodile tears.
Yeah. Chase, it's funny you say that. My wife literally rewind like an hour and a half ago says, "Hey, fall pictures for me and the boy, family pictures." She said October 5th or the 12th, and I snapped my head and she goes, "What was that?" I said 5th all day, because that buck that I have sheds off of Apple Picture, he daylighted the 13th. So I will be hitting that piece hard. He was in there a couple times on camera right around that second week of October, but I think I know the day he daylighted was October 13th, and that deer will be a slammer if he's alive. But the trail cam also got stolen in that same area, so
it's the buck.
Right.
I think these bucks are taking your cameras from you.
But yeah, the raccoons, man, the raccoons, dude, they sabotage me
with the bear here.
They'll jump on that mount and just send that thing to the forest floor, and you're like, how? Like,
yeah. But I've also, the other thing I've kind of noticed, Byron, on the historical, that was that time frame, but I've also noticed that, okay, that buck is in that area at this time frame, but I know where he's at late season as well. Like I know, like he makes a little shift over to a different section of the property, and he daylights ever so often. It's not kind of as calculated, but he will make daylighted appearances on that side of the property as well. So I think you can go, okay, this buck is here around this time, but then come late November, he daylights over here some. And then you can kind of make the move instead of going, I'm just going to keep hunting this buck in the same area, hoping that he shows back up at some point.
It's funny. We have used it. Zoe has a small piece, and trail cams actually kind of confirmed that we used them almost like, scouting does. It was he ended up shooting a buck, and this is like the second year in a row that November 3rd his place was on fire. And the trail cam, we knew that doe was probably hot, but obviously weren't 100% sure if that or it was the 4-point that was grunting was just fired up 4-point. So he shot a buck, right? So 2 bucks, that could mean something. Dude, we drug Zoe's buck up, left the trail camera. We had 2 or 3 other bucks come in that day, and one was a giant. And it's like, clearly them does on that particular area or whatever, they get funky on November 3rd. Like it's a no-brainer year over year where to go November 3rd for him.
Right. And Walter and I've kind of discussed that a little bit on the podcast before, just because Florida's rut is so weird.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you
And,
do have
and,
that.
and to kind of notice maybe like what I'm looking for in the summer on the cameras is the fawn drop. Because there'll be like different levels of fawns. Like you have your spotted fawns, and then some that look like they're about to lose their spots, and then some that have already lost their spots. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously it kind of looks like maybe this area, they may be rutting October. And this area, these does are hot
Yep.
November. And this area, these does are hot December. So kind of planning around that to go, okay, I'm going to focus on this area in October. I'll make a shift and kind of focus over here in November, and then another shift maybe December time.
Yeah, to speak to that even more specifically, the place here behind my house is a mid-January rut. That's your peak bell curve. I have on numerous cameras deer being bred or deer still holding late enough that I've identified a very clear secondary rut mid to late February. And so for me, that factors into where I'm going because now, my season runs into February. And whereas last year I was like, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I'm gassed. The deer aren't rutting. We don't have bean fields and snow that kind of makes them predictable or anything like that. And so I just wrote off February. I mean, well, I can tell you this much right now. February is a rut month for me.
Mhm.
Like my rut starts in December on the east side of my county and runs through February on the west side of my county. So, there's just invaluable insight if you can get what you need on camera. Um, which I'm curious, Byron, what are you doing to obtain useful data? Not all pictures tell you something. What are you doing to make sure that you're getting something that you can is actionable?
Yeah, I mean, I look at cameras as far as actionable. Like, if you get proof of life, like we talked about the confidence boost, you will hunt harder, you will scout harder, you will go looking. If you know there's a shooter in the area, you'll spend boots on the ground there. Like it can definitely lead to a kill. Um, I've killed 2 bucks off trail cams. I feel like one was simple proof of life. Like I threw a camera on a new piece of public, and it showed caliber a buck was in that area. Like that piece of public clearly could hold a good one. And then it also showed a couple 2.5-year-olds, and I think my buck was 2.5. When I got him on camera, it was a late December, January winter trail cam pick, and all it showed me was proof of life. There was one slammer in there. So then I spent some off season scouting, trying to learn that piece, figure out the blueprint of the area, and just kind of happened to catch up with that deer on October 25th on a hang and hunt. It was actually the story we told in the podcast I was on last time. As far as data and taking it and also applying it, I kind of have a rule as far as like some simple analysis I do, especially if I get trends, like multiple occurrences of a buck. And all I do is I've got a video on this, but I go to Weather Underground. I look at just the wind direction for the kind of time frame he came through. I throw that in there. And then I have a scoring system, and it's 1 point for nighttime picks, 2 points for kind of daytime picks, dawn, dusk. And then I give 3 points for midday movement. And I got some question to why 3 points. And I just believe, one, those deer are generally not far from where they're bedding. If they like get up at noon and stretch their legs and boom, you get a trail cam pick on the kind of odd hour, the dawn and dusk. Midday picks, I don't think a deer is going to move around a lot in a area he feels like he's not going to make a mistake midday for the most part. Obviously, the rut's kind of a different story, but they're not going to go wandering far midday, regardless of what they're doing. And so, I really give three points for midday movement. And I'll try and look for trends that way. I had a buck that I had him a lot actually in the summer, and then clearly he stayed in the fall. And out of all the data points, I think I scored 32-ish points. Like that was the total score sheet. 20 some of them were on winds that were west and south. And I killed that buck on a southwest wind. Now, I didn't know that buck was going to be there that day. It was just like I kind of correlated it after I shot him and realized who it was. But somebody who might have been a little more in tune to that maybe historical data of that buck, or maybe put a little more faith in trail cameras than I was doing back then. I'd have said, dude, Southwest wind, I need to be hunting this particular area and this particular stand on a regular basis. I almost more realized the fact after, if you will.
So do you move your cameras frequently through that like October shift, or are you just kind of keeping them in similar areas and just relying on the deer shift themselves to provide you with that information?
No, I definitely shift them. My plan here and what I've done last year is like, if I'm hunting an area and there's always that farm country stuff that I do like late August, September timeframe. And then the big wood stuff I'm going to try and get to in September this year. And I will shift those. The cameras come off the bean fields. They come off the stuff that's close to parking lots. I've got several cameras that are either on access, like, easement trails and stuff like that are real obvious, but like, I think I can get inventory as far as nighttime. I know that I've had that happen enough. Dave just shot me a text literally today that he has to go pull a couple cameras that need to be shifted due to squirrel pressure. It's true, man. Them squirrel hunters, man, they get in those timber, and if you're in an area with hickories and walnuts, that's where they like to go, and so you might have a couple more squirrel hunters in that area. But yeah, it's definitely a shift. And then honestly, Walt, like, I remember, if I look at last year, once I got the trail cam pick of the buck kind of I was after, I didn't really do much shifting of my cameras after October 13th. I was doing more of my hunts, where I'm scouting a bit, still kind of letting those cameras soak and do their thing. Like, it's one of those things. I don't want to fall too in love with running trail cameras when I can be hunting and looking at sign, but like, I kind of want to use them in tandem. Like, I want to be, I can pop over here, pull this camera. Oh, it doesn't have any good bucks. Well, I'm not going to go speed scout that place because I've got 2 or 3 other cameras on this piece of public that I can go pull. And if I do get a buck in that area, now maybe I go put boots to ground in that particular area because I already have a piece to the puzzle. And if they're all blank, I just need to start walking my butt off. But like, and checking trail cams, Josh Profit talks about it. When you're checking trail cameras, you're walking, you're scouting, you're looking at things. If you would see 3 or 4 big rubs and have no big buck on camera, you should still probably hunt those 3 or 4 big rubs. I'm not, I feel like I've got that. I feel like that part of my game is honed in enough that I wouldn't necessarily need a trail cam picture to tell me to hunt.
A bird in the hand's kind of worth 2 in the bush for you. If you get a photo of a deer, you're willing to spend a little more time there.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, Chase, I've got a very controversial topic that I'm going to hit him with, but before I blow up the podcast with this one, you got any questions you want to ask?
No, man. I think we've covered it pretty thorough up to this point.
Right on. All right, Byron. I'm sure you're rather aware of where I'm going with this, but
yes.
Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young have come out with a very clear and murky stance on cell cameras. And for anybody who's listening right now, the use of cell cameras, if you are provided immediate benefit and actionable intel, and kill a Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett specimen, you are no longer eligible to be in their record books. Byron, thoughts?
I'm sorry, say it again, that last part. Am I allowed to speak my piece on this?
Oh, yeah. Dad, the mic is yours, my friend. What are your thoughts on cell cameras and maybe Boone and Crockett's stance as a whole?
So I am perfectly okay with kind of that statement of them being deemed like, whatever their fine line print says as far as not eligible for entry. And I think a lot of that stems from I am okay with the deer winning in some aspect. I look at what is coming with now. We have a lot of cell cams at the $100-ish mark, and in a couple years, a guy can scatter 5 of those on his back 100 acres and never be touching his woods until those cell cams tell him where he needs to hunt. He doesn't have to think or make a decision or potentially spook that buck or let that buck know he's being hunted. He can simply watch football on Saturdays, realize that they are not daylighting. He doesn't have a hot doe. You know what? I probably should not hunt my piece tonight if I'm after Billy Big Buck. I think you look at technology in other areas, such as like sports like NASCAR and golf, and they cap what the cars can do as far as at races to not perform at a certain level. They cap, putting stupid amount of technology in a driver and a golf ball to blast it 500 yards with a terrible swing. And so I believe a cell cam is just such a deadly tool. And I do kind of think it's unfair when, especially now that the cost has come down so tremendously, that, it is that deer does not have a chance to get away and kind of figure out that he's being hunted versus like a regular trail cam that you go and physically check. He may pick your ground scent up. He may see you. He may hear you. It requires effort, time, energy to drive, to walk in, to drive your ATV. It all requires energy and time versus a cell cam pings you a message of your buck that you just slept overnight and know what he's doing. I really think when you can afford 7 of these and scatter them through your best 100 acres, there's no reason you can't kill a big one. It's just too deadly.
All right, Chase.
Well, I mean, I understand where Byron's coming from, for sure. But for Boone and Crockett, you also get to use a rifle, which can, I mean, you're talking about, 300, 400 people are shooting them at almost 1,000 yards. So is that fair chase? There's a lot of different things that you can say maybe aren't fair chase, like range finding, sights, all of these other things. And I do think that people will probably use it, like Byron says, where if they really are affordable or that much more affordable, that they may be able to do it like that. But the deer is still a deer. So it may not make that decision just based on you see it on trail camera and you go out and kill it that day. I kind of used an instance. Well, how's that any different than if you're hunting a piece and a farmer says, hey, there's this 175-inch buck out in my field. He's out here right now. He's been out here 5-10 minutes and you live 5-10 minutes down the road. What's to stop you from going and getting your vehicle and shooting that deer? Is that the same as that? To me, it kind of is, but it's not as much as, okay, you're getting a ton of data points on this deer, but it's still kind of that same thing. Like you didn't put any effort into it. A farmer called you and you went out into the woods and you shot a Boone and Crockett deer. And as far as Boone and Crockett itself, I feel like I don't even have to worry about that because I hunt Florida. So the chances of me of killing a Boone and Crockett deer are slim to none. I mean, there's been 5 deer ever killed in the state of Florida that's actually in the record book that would meet Boone and Crockett standards, and they were all non-typical. Florida has 0 typical bucks that could meet the Boone and Crockett scoring standards. So I'd feel like, well, I live in Florida. I don't even have to worry about it. And I think that a lot of people are still going to run their cell cams anyways. They're just not going to be able to put it in Boone and Crockett's record books, which you still have whatever. You can still go, okay, I killed 170 or 200-inch deer. So I don't know why they want to just go, okay, it was with a cell cam. You can't be in our record book when guys from Florida can't be in your record book anyways.
Mm-hmm. So I have come like I said, like round robin on this like 4 or 5 times. I own a stealth or a spy point that's cell camera. I'm going to use it. I don't feel guilty about using it. From the abuse standpoint, I can really only speak to public land. That's how I use them. I think the private land guys got enough like control advantages that if you're like the only guy hunting 1,000-acre block, I mean, you're able to control bedding if you own it and everything. When I think about public land, I think about the potential for abuse. And I think that, Byron, if you're talking about the kind of guy who's going to wait on a picture to tell him when he should go hunting, when he has to put it in the right spot, when he has to have, made sure he's got cell service and all these different things, I think of a fairly unambitious person because you can't keep me out of the woods come deer season. I'm going to find some place to go hunting, and that camera only gives me a very small snapshot in time in one spot. And I think it kind of creates opportunities. Playing devil's advocate for this, if the guys who only go 200 yards off the road or 100 yards off the road, and then they set up in their climber and they get down at an hour after daylight, those guys that come in and do that kind of thing, if you give them a way to stay out of the woods, that does create opportunities for people like you and I. And I kind of see some advantages to that. The downside is when I think about, and this is kind of a unique thing to Florida, but when I think about dog hunters, I see a real potential for abuse. This is the only group that I know that has the ability to really utilize that live information. And picture a world where cell cameras are ridiculously inexpensive, ridiculously cheap to run. We're right there on that brink as it is right now. You could have a group of guys cam up a block, set it to where it's 6 o'clock a.m. every morning. It's going to tell them exactly where they got photos. They can drop those hounds right where they need to be to get on those deer. And so I kind of see both worlds, and I don't think we're done. I don't think we're done hashing this out. I think this might become the new crossbow versus compound bow like dialogue that's probably going to dominate for the next couple years. And I hope that we can find a way to navigate it well, because it's going to be a sticking point. And I think Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young tried to get ahead of everything, and I think they tried to give themselves some leeway when it comes to the actionable part of it, right? They made it kind of vague in that if you use this immediately, or I can't remember the wording that they used. It's interesting to me how they went about wording it, because if I get a cell camera photo from yesterday and I'm hunting today, I don't really consider that actionable data. That's not live data. But I don't know. This is about to get sporty, I think. And I'm sure I ticked off probably a good chunk of our listeners with that dog hunting comment.
Oh, yeah. But it's, I think you pinned a pretty fair point. It is, to get a text message of a buck, or let's say it's your rut and you got a picture of a doe looking over her shoulder, there is no doubt where you should start your pursuit, whether by dog or by foot.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, how long have cell cams been out now? 5-6 years?
Probably. Yeah, that's probably fair. Maybe
probably
longer.
Around that time.
Yeah.
So is it just everyone who's already done that, they're just grandfathered in to the Boone and Crockett, and now people who
that's a good point
aren't or can't be in there?
Yeah.
Because I know there's tons of people that are using them, and I guarantee you that they're in Boone and Crockett right now and did the exact same thing we're saying you can't do anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just like scoring records, though, before the 3-point line, like, there's definitely, once a rule is in effect, there is kind of a new standard. And
right.
I'd be interested, Chase, because I see... it's a very valid point. I don't think you can backtrack on that, though, at this point. I'll be interested to see what they come about, and if the if the state by state case kind of has to set their own standards by state. If you look at what could be coming, I mean, it's not unthinkable to think it's going to be a live stream, and you're going to have these cameras that, it pretty much is a live stream. Some of these cameras, you can go into the app and say, take a photo, and it sends to your phone within minutes.
Right.
That's
right.
It'd be scary to sit there and think you just log onto your computer and you've got a live stream of all the best pinches in a place, or the best food sources, or all the scrapes. Like, that is, I think that's what they're going to come out with when we see stuff like these, the laser range finding sites, and who knows what's coming next. Do we get camouflage that is stupidly adaptable, or suits that actually do maybe kill your scent completely? Like, I got to think like these organizations and the legislation bodies are going to have to step in and say, you know what, that's just too much.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Right.
I think it just doesn't, for me, it just doesn't cross that threshold of taking away something from the deer. Like, you know, obvious example here, night vision goggles. We shouldn't be hunting at night with night vision goggles because you take away cover, you take away an advantage. One of the reasons why I don't think I could ever really get behind ozonics or something that truly took away scent is because, like you said, I'm okay with that deer getting away, and taking away one of its biggest defenses. Is that really hunting at that point? Have we just moved into like this cloaked existence that gives us an unfair advantage? I don't know. To me it's just not cut and dry enough to where I feel like we can delineate like completely across the board that something is or isn't ethical right now. With like what Chase said, 500-yard rifle shots, are those ethical? I don't know.
Right. Well, we also got to factor in that, is it an unfair advantage to be in Iowa versus Florida to be in that record book?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I almost wish that they would. I mean, I kind of think that they could, if they want to include more people, that it would almost be on like a state-by-state basis, because I could go out and kill a 5-year-old buck in Florida and it not make Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett. You could go kill a 2-year-old in Iowa and it could make at least Pope and Young. And then there's probably some 3.5, maybe 4-year-olds that are going to easily make Boone and Crockett in Iowa, where I don't have that option. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not there.
That's true.
So I don't know why they don't kind of change that, because if you want to include everybody and you want everybody or all these states to kind of be a part of your club, it doesn't make any sense to me. I know they do other things other than just scoring.
Sure.
I mean, I know Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young, they do all kinds of stuff for deer and conservation and things like that. But to me, if you want to include more people, like, okay, Florida has a record book that's 100 inches. So
Right.
anything you kill over 100 inches is in our record book. So how come we can't get like Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett to kind of go on, okay, we need to maybe adjust our scoring for Florida to be able to get an entry for that.
Right. Well, and I don't think they want everybody to participate, but if you're going to, the point of Pope and Young record books is to document remarkable specimens, right? And if that's the case, then in Florida, that's a lot different than what it is in Iowa. I mean, it just is, and I'd like to see some kind. I'm with you, Chase. I think if they're going to delineate and start reforming things, I think a scaled approach that takes into account some kind of bell curve of what is submitted per se would be a far better way of increasing participation in their organization. Because, like you said, they do more than just maintain record books. But yeah, I'm going to keep using mine. That's for sure. I hope you don't think less of me, Byron.
No. I feel pretty good about it. I think we both made awesome points, and yeah, I think I don't know. It will be interesting to see what the future holds. And like Dave said, he goes when if it comes to it, and there's $50 cell cams and guys are shooting giants all around us, we're just going to go stick bows and shoot squirrels and deer, and we're just going to be hunting. We're not even going to be the whitetail experience. It'll be a show called like Gone Hunting or something like that.
Non-cellular.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you looked into any of the data, Byron, to see if that's the case? I mean, obviously people are more on management side now anyways than they
Right.
were 20, 30 years ago. But are we seeing, like, within the last 5 years, are we seeing a trend of, hey, they killed a lot more Pope and Youngs this year and a lot more Boone and Crockett bucks than ever before?
Oh, no. I guess the only couple of real data I know is just hearing dudes talk that there's Dave and I know a guy who hunts 3 days a year and shoots giants. And, he worked in the hunting industry and got a hold of cell cams at cost 5 years ago. And,
Right.
it was one of those things like, God, how is he shooting these giants? And he literally told us he waits for a buck to do something twice, and then he goes.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
one thought that just popped into my mind as you said that, Chase, if the data did suggest that more people were shooting Pope and Youngs, wouldn't that perhaps indicate that people were being more selective? And so couldn't that also be another management benefit to having cell cameras, that people feel empowered that they could let that 100-inch deer walk and target something that's older could that not yield an older age class of deer as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it could for maybe those areas.
Right.
But I mean, Florida, you can kill $5.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, obviously it's more nuanced, but I'm just thinking like Byron, if 25% of the people in your area, quit shooting dinks and started trying to target the 100, because let's face it, they're still not going to be as successful. If they started targeting those larger age class deer, in theory, that would mean there'd be more. The bell curve gets shifted further up the maturity. Wouldn't that be something that would attract you, perhaps?
Yeah, I guess it may make them easier to know that a big one's there too.
Right.
But I mean, I feel like people still have to factor in like what the wind direction is, what their access is. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people still have to factor in before going into a stand without. I mean, you could give Joe Schmo a cell cams and he go, "Oh, there's a huge deer in there," and if he's not factoring in wind and access and everything else, he's probably not going to kill that deer. Or she.
Yeah.
Whoever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not as simple as, receive the photo and kill him, for sure. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. Maybe 3 years from now, Byron comes on the podcast and says, "You know what? I was wrong." Or maybe I, become a bitter ginger one day and I was like, "I can't believe I used cell cameras. It was the worst thing I ever did." Who knows? I mean, the sky's the limit. But Byron, we have burned up a bunch of your time, and I know that's precious with that little one that you've got. So why don't you let everybody know what they can come to expect from the Whitetail Experience this fall, and where can they go to find you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the plug there, and I've really enjoyed talking with you guys tonight. Chase has got me fired up as far as ready to go, pull some more cams and get on them. But yeah, they can definitely check out our page. We've been trying to put a little more video work on our YouTube as far as just different videos, really, like from breaking stuff down. I got a video coming out this week on different rope mods. Does a cam strap buckle work better? How about a daisy chain? And try to do some testing there. And as far as the Whitetail Experience, we're going to hunt, let's see here, Kentucky for sure this year, Ohio public land. Got an Illinois tag
what?
This year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hunting with Kurt?
No, I am well, maybe with Cody DeQuisto, but a few of those addiction guys. So I may get turned loose on a bigger piece of Midwest farm ground, and we'll see what that looks like. I know that's going to be a learning lesson in itself.
Nice.
So yeah, it's going to be an exciting fall, and I'm fired up now. I have to go tell my boy a bow hunting story here before he goes to bed.
Nice.
He doesn't like the turkey ones.
Awesome. Hey, well, I got to give a shout out to you, Byron, because you are doing a phenomenal job with the whitetail addiction stuff that you've kind of taken over. So, I mean, that content that you're putting out and everything has been great thus far.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. That project pushed me as a video producer, putting together a lot more long format stuff I don't shoot, and I appreciate those kind words, and I think that show was before its time. The solo filming aspect of that show, I think, is going to be popular now with kind of the general community and guys wanting to see a little more of that stuff.
Yeah, man. It's awesome. As always, your company is greatly appreciated. One day we are going to share deer camp. I'm excited at that idea. We're going to start branching out and hitting states, and I can't wait to track a deer in leaves on the ground where there's fall weather and cold fronts, mind you. So one day we're going to get together. But dude, I really appreciate you taking time out your evening, and I hope you have a good hunting season.
Yeah, you guys as well, man. I pull hard for both you guys. Really, I've enjoyed watching Walt kill some turkeys this spring, and Chase, you're probably the guy I know killing the biggest bucks out of the South, and you got to keep Parker off your heels,
Yeah, I do, man. I don't feel like we're in a competition though. We're kind of in different areas, but
yeah. But like, dude, man, we threw you on one of our Pick'em 3 guys. We discussed you as if if the competitions were headed to the south, we were going to take Chase on our squad for that.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I think Walt was like, "Hey, man, you got to listen to that podcast." And I mean, I listened to all your podcasts. It's just whenever I get to them, I'm like, "Okay, let me listen to this." And when I heard my name, I was just like, "I can't believe these guys just threw my name out there." But man. I mean, if you want somebody that is going to work as hard as every other guy, then I'm your man, no matter where it's at. So.
That's right. You show us how to get it done in Iowa this year, and we'll just be pumped up for it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping.
Byron, you got to give him a good word about taking that camera every time he goes into the woods. He bought all this equipment. We need him to take it.
Oh man, yeah, that's the grind. It can be 10 pounds, man. But let me tell you, there is nothing better. And the shot on frame doesn't have to be there, but just some of those little things. It's a cool thing, and it's definitely some work, but definitely you become efficient. You can become efficient quick.
That's it.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I told you it'd be different than anything else, and I genuinely believe it was. Do us a favor, Chase and Tails Nation. Get out there. Go find Byron's YouTube channel. Subscribe. Like every video he's got. And until next time, more importantly, get outside and enjoy the great outdoors.